Interviewing is not a one-way interrogation where the employer asks you a series of questions and you just answer and they assess your abilities. It is a dialogue, a conversation where both the parties come together to find out what's happening, what are the needs on each side, what are the expectations, and if it aligns with what you're looking for. So if you've got the mindset that they will just ask you questions and you will answer, get that changed now. Now, this video is supposed to be your crash course on asking good interview questions, the kind of interview questions which make a lot of difference to your interviewing. If you've had a not so decent interview, there's no chemistry, you don't know if your answers are landing, this is your second chance to impress them and nail the interview. And if you've been doing everything right, you've got them very interested, you can seal the deal through the quality of your questions. So we are going to be covering a lot of things today, including why you should be asking questions, what are some of the formats for the question, difference between a good and a great question, a couple of questions you should always ask by the end of your interview, and finally, a bonus tip on how you can ask your interview questions to completely change your interviewing. Hi, my name is Shubh Faujdar. I'm a job search strategist and career coach and a former corporate recruiter based out of Singapore. I release videos on this channel for job search and career development every Tuesday, 9 a.m. for a short weekly tip, and every Thursday, 9 a.m. with a deep dive. And today's deep dive is about asking the right questions. So let's get started. So why should you be asking the right questions? There are a lot of reasons. Let me tell you my top 4 or 5 reasons. Firstly, asking questions shows that you're interested in the role and in your own career. As a recruiter, I've never had a candidate being rejected because they ended up asking interview questions. However, I've had 2 instances where the client rejected candidates saying that either he is not interested in his own career or in this particular role, in which scenarios they don't want to hire him. So please ask questions. Reason 2, you need to make an informed decision. Look, the company is doing everything to minimize their risk. When they make a wrong hire, it affects the morale of the team. It affects their cost as well. But in the grand scheme of things, the cost of hiring you, unless you are the C-suite person, is a small percentage of their overall operation costs. But for you, a wrong role can completely change the trajectory of your career. It not only affects you, it affects all the people around you as well. So it is in your interest to find out everything you need to make an informed decision. Reason 3, it is an excellent opportunity to show your industry knowledge and your functional skills. With the quality of your questions, you can make a lot of difference in showcasing and highlighting how you are a better candidate than the other candidates. Reason number 4, it helps you to build that chemistry with the interviewer and also control the overall flow of the interview. In fact, today's bonus tip is going to be about how do you use questions to control the flow of the interview. So let's dive in on how do you prepare these questions. I like to use the funnel method, which means go macro. Depending on your seniority, you might want to ask questions based on the industry, then about the company, then about the team you would be joining, finally about the role and how it affects you. So I always like to use this approach. It shows all the strategic aspects of the role and the tactical aspects of the role as well. Now let's very quickly touch difference between a good question and a great question. A good question is something like, what are the challenges for this role? You can ask this of anyone. Doesn't tell me anything about your research. A better question is, I've read your earnings call report and also listened to some of the podcasts of the senior management. And one of the key challenge they ended up highlighting is how XYZ is happening in the industry. How is that affecting your team? Now, there are a couple of things which this question does. Firstly, it tells them you've done your research. You've read the earnings call report and listened to podcasts. You understand business challenges and you've picked the right challenge to discuss. But instead of asking this, how it's affecting the whole company, I mean, they may have no clue about it. You are bringing it to their team. So you're asking, how is it affecting your team? And how will it affect this role? To get the right kind of information. Some of the other questions you may want to prepare beforehand would be about the role, the progression, what are the expectations from this particular position, what are the performance metrics this role will be assessed on, what's happening in the industry and the company if you found something out of the research. So I would say preparing about 5 to 7 questions is key. You may not need to ask all of them. You may not have the time to ask all of them, but having so many questions prepared is absolutely important. Now, I want to tell you a couple of questions you should always ask the interviewer. The final question before you end the interview is, what are the next steps and when can I hear back? So many job seekers are clueless about the job search process. When can they hear back? Who should be their point of contact? What are the next steps? And they keep on hoping, praying, waiting forever. So get clarity on that as soon as possible. The second last question you want to ask, and this is best asked to the hiring manager or other senior business leaders and senior HR people. I would probably not ask this question in a recruiter screening round, but here's the question. Based on our conversation so far, is there anything about my profile which you would need more clarity on, or anything that I'm missing in my experience which may not make me a suitable candidate for the role? Now, before you say, oh my God, aren't we just asking them to look at the interview and let us know why we are not suitable? Here are 3 responses you can get. Number 1, no, actually nothing. Yeah, you hit all the boxes. You are really the kind of candidate we are looking at, and the HR will contact you within the week to arrange the next round of interview. It means you have passed the interview, you're going there, you've got instant feedback. Number 2, actually, yes, we were looking for somebody who had some regional experience, specifically focused in Southeast Asia. Now, if you do have that experience, but it just didn't come up in the interview, you've got a golden opportunity to clarify that. And you can say, actually, I do have that experience. For some reason, it just did not come up. In fact, in 2018 to 2021, in my role with XYZ company, I took care of this region, and you elaborate on that. If you don't have that experience, then you acknowledge it and tell how you have earlier learned new skills. So you could say, yes, I did notice that having experience in Southeast Asia is extremely important, and I am well aware of that fact. However, if you look at my career trajectory, I have changed geographies multiple times throughout my career, and there are certain things which I always do to prepare myself for it better. And you list down 2, 3 things you've done in the past to get yourself equipped to handle a different geography or a different region. The third response they can give you is, not really. We are still interviewing a few candidates and somebody will come back to you in 2 to 3 weeks. This means you're not the top candidate. They're not so excited about you, but you're not somebody they would reject either. You are a candidate they have KIV'd or kept in view. So, well, I would not put a lot of hopes on this particular role. I will still go through the whole process. Sometimes their top candidate falls out. You may end up getting the role, but it gives you instant feedback. Now moving on to the bonus tip. Do not wait till the end to start asking questions. Look, a lot of us say in our introductions about the stakeholder management skills we have. Show them by the way you're conducting yourself in the interview. One of the best tips I can give you is once you've completed your introduction, you can ask for their permission and say, I'm happy to elaborate further on my experience, but if it's okay with you, may I ask a quick question? Most of them will say yes. If they say no, I would note it down. It tells you something about the culture of the organization or the way this person will be working with you. And then I would say, look, I've read the job description. I have had this call with the recruiter who's given me a bit of a rundown of the role, but I would love to hear from you as the hiring manager or a senior stakeholder or the HR head. What are your expectations from this role? This does a few things. It changes the nature of the interview to make it more conversational. Now you can keep on going back and forth with your question throughout the interview. Secondly, you hear from the person at the beginning of the interview, what are their expectations? So you can tailor all your answers based on this person's expectations. And they may be different depending on who you are dealing with. And the third thing is you've now brought the power balance back. The employer is no longer here and you're no longer here. You're both assessing each other's fit and asking the right questions. So try out this bonus tip. Leave in the comments, how did it work out with you? A lot of people have hesitation before they use this, but once they do, they never go back. If you have any other questions about asking questions in an interview, please write in your comments. Also share with us some stories about how you used interview questions to turn around the interview or to seal the deal with them. And make sure you subscribe to the channel. Until next week, take care.